Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects, episode 137. I'm your host, Kobe Manso. Welcome back to the show. If you're new to the show, welcome. A lot of new people following the show on Instagram, on Twitter, on other platforms. No one loves to see it more than myself. I appreciate you guys and all the love you've shown for our content. Division III, Division II, NAIA football. We're getting pretty in-depth to all three levels. We've got more great coverage for you today. It all starts with Jake Dorn from West Florida. Our guest for tonight, The Argonauts, they prevail against Delta State in a top 10 matchup. The Gulf South title implications on the line in Delta State in Mississippi. The Argonauts, man, they came alive. Their offense bounced back after a week last week where they really struggled. And we talk about with him later, but when they start playing some complimentary football, man, there's not a lot of teams that want to line up against them. Otherwise, tonight, two massive top 10 upsets to talk about in D2 and D3 football. We'll get there. Augustana pulling off a huge win against Mankato. And you've got Gustavus with the big dub over St. John's. We're going to talk all of that and more. We've got Jimmy Martin joining me here soon from the D3 side of things to give us the breakdown of the Division III landscape. And then, of course, Matthew Schwarzler later on to break down the NAIA side of things. If you want to fast forward to any part of the show, use the chapters up here on YouTube, bottom of the screen, fast forward to any part of it, and then get the hell out of here or listen to the whole thing. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, all those timestamps will be in the description of the video or the audio file, whatever the hell it is. So you can fast forward wherever you want. Otherwise, today, Tyson Bagent, well, not today, this week, we're talking about it today. Tyson Bagent gets a W in his first start. The former Division II Harlan Hill Trophy winner from Shepherd University gets his first start with the Chicago Bears after being an undrafted free agent, beats out PJ for the QB2 spot over there in Chicago, and he gets a W against the Raiders. We're going to talk all about that to start the show today, but other than that, why not start things off by taking a look at our Game of the Week and Player of the Week selections for Week 8 of the college football season. And we'll start here with our Game of the Week selections here. And if you want to be the first ones to see these, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. We always post these out. On the D2 side of things, we're talking to Jake Dorn tonight, man. This game was incredible. 24-21, West Florida goes ahead and beats Delta State in a top 15 matchup. A ton of really big implications for the Argonauts, who already had one loss in the year against FAMU, even though it was a Division I squad, had their backs up against the wall after a second loss to West Alabama. And, you know, if you're Coach Nobles, you just saw him there in that West Florida team, you know you basically have to win out in order to secure yourself a bid in the playoffs in that region. They do just that, at least so far. They've got another challenge coming up in Valdosta State. But on the D3 side of things, here you have it. Gustavus Adolphus over St. John's University. A huge upset from unranked Gustavus over number 7 St. John's, 38-35. A pretty offensive shootout there for a squad that has been having a decent year, but we haven't seen this level of offense against a top caliber opponent for the Gusties. And I couldn't be more happy for him, man. Check out this one right here, this Hail Mary, right to the back of the end zone. Bam! Love to see that shit. That looked electric. The environment was incredible. So shout out to those guys. That game was a big one. Finally, on the NAIA side of things, we've got the College of Idaho, the Yotes. They pick up a big win against conference foe, in the Frontier Carroll in another top 10 matchup. And this one, a little more one-sided, maybe than the score would suggest. Idaho came in there into Carroll on the road, and they dominated offensively. I thought they were moving the ball at ease from most of the stuff and most of the film that I saw. Shout out to those guys. Carroll's still a very respectable opponent. Look at that deep ball right there. Hello. Big-time game on the NAIA scene. But we can transition over and talk about our Player of the Week selections from all three of those levels. Let's start things off with the man who we had on here just pretty recently, Zach Zabrowski for Central Missouri. Holy shit. I almost ran out of room on the right side of this graphic for all the stats this dude put up. Against the top 25 Division II high-caliber squad, by the way. This was not against the Joe Schmoes of the world. This was Emporia State, a top foe in the MIAA and a top 25 team in the country, according to D2Football.com, where I get all my rankings from. 31 for 51, 615 yards, 8 touchdowns for the kid. No takeaways there, no interceptions, right? Taking care of the ball. Also, on top of that, 9 rushes for another 58 on the ground. Let me do a little math here. That's 673 yards of total offense for the guy. That's incredible. You know, if the Harlan Hill Trophy was handed out tomorrow, you're looking at him. right? Like, that's the kind of season this dude is having, coming over from Southern Illinois. Not sure if he was even going to be the starting quarterback. Go back to his conversation. Definitely check that out. We had him on the show. And then their starter for the Mules goes down. He steps in. He's never looked back since. Shout out to him. Huge game for the Mules. One of the best offenses probably right now in the country. They are playing at an incredible clip. D2Football.com just had their Inside D2 Football show with Coach Lambo. Be sure to go check that out. Great dude, great squad right now. They're rolling. How about Sean Hill, UNC Pembroke? 6 tackles, 4 TFLs, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a blocked kick for the graduate student over there. UNC Pembroke, they picked up a huge win against a West Virginia Wesleyan team that admittedly is pretty bottom of the barrel. Nonetheless, still a college football team, still putting up some very incredible stats. Another great nominee for this one, and I'm going to have to look up, I'm blanking on his name, but the true freshman linebacker from Northern State who had himself a game, he was very close to getting this nomination, and I will tell you why here in a second. I know he had about 11 tackles. He had a pick 6, and they're upset over Wayne State that we'll talk about a little bit more later. That was a huge win for the Wolves, and there he is. Jake Adams from Northern State was definitely one to be in that conversation as well. So I think we have a ton of great nominations for these guys at the end of the day. Just got to make one pick for the most part. There are some times where we'll do 2 players, but we try and keep it to 1 for the most part. As far as our special teams go, Avery Book from Augustana. We're going to talk a lot about that squad. They're upset over Mankato. He was a big part of it. 6 punts, over 45 yards average, had a long of 59, 2 inside the 20, and 3 boots of 50-plus yards. Pretty incredible stuff from the kid. On the D3 side of things, we did do Co here because of the fact that they're teammates. They both balled out. From Illinois College, Colin Brunstein here and Destin Chance, the quarterback and receiver duo. You can see Chance there, 26 for 37, 465 yards and 8 tuds. And then his receiver, obviously leading receiver on the day, 7 catches for 289 and 5 tuds. Let me get my phone out. I should have done this before. 7 catches for 289. Is despicable. That's 41 yards a pop, and 5 of the 7 were tuds. Woo! That's crazy. Moving forward, though, we've got Matt Heineman here from FU Florham. 9 tackles, 4.5 of those tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and a QB hit on the day. That's big time. That's some stuff that's going to earn you some pretty big accolades here. And then we've got Talon West here from Elmhurst. He had 3 tackles and 3 PBUs, but the thing that really elevated him special teams-wise here, the field goal or PAT block, probably should have said PAT block on that, but what it was is he blocked that. That ended up being the score to win the game for Elmhurst. It was a 2-point conversion the other way, and that kind of play is going to get you in this position to win these kind of awards with us. Otherwise, NAIA, U-Pike, Lee Kirkland, he was 26 for 34, 306 and 4 tuds through the air for the big fella. And on the defensive side of things, we had Dwight Lewis, who, if you follow us on the socials, we saw another post that we put out. Dwight Lewis III, he had 4 tackles, 2 solo, but he had 3 interceptions in one game, tying a program record, 3 pass breakups. And there's another dude on the team with the last name of Lewis, Danny Lewis. He had 2 picks, too. So they had 5 between the 2 of them. And actually, We'll go through here, and I'll show you the graphic in a second. Finally, Rhett Anderson from Ottawa was 2 for 2 on field goals, had a long of 42, and was perfect in extra points. But if we go back, talking about Mr. Lewis over here, if we look at our account, let's see here. I can show you what I'm talking about, because if you follow us, you saw this earlier. Check out these 2, man. 5 interceptions between Dwight and Danny Lewis from Marion. Man, the Marion Knights, what a defensive performance from these guys against St. Francis, a huge W for Marion, who's been playing at a really high level right now. Shout out to them. Shout out to all of our Player of the Week suggestions, or nominations, If you want to nominate people for Player of the Week award, myself and Mike Wilson over at the College Football Network both put out a post either Saturday night or Sunday morning asking for nominations. So if you're not nominated for award, we do our best to try and scan everywhere. We miss shit all the time. But if your person, your buddy, your friend, family member, you don't win an award and you didn't nominate said person, no excuses, right? No excuses. Otherwise, you can watch this episode on YouTube. Don't forget, like I said, timestamps on the bottom of the screen there. You can listen pretty much anywhere else. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. See all those fun graphics right when they come out. Should be a pretty fun piece on your feed. And do not forget to subscribe on YouTube. Recruitment towards 1,000. I would love to be able to do some live shows with you guys. So keep getting that number up, subscribers on YouTube. But first, before we talk about any of that other stuff, Tyson Bagent, D2 football, any of it, let's get to our guest conversation for tonight with Jake Dorn. Joining the show tonight, this man wrestles pythons in the Everglades before he wrestles offensive linemen each and every night at practice. A grad transfer from SVSU and the Gulf South Defensive Player of the Week, Agent Zero, is Jake Dorn. What's up, dude?
What up, man? I appreciate you having me back on. It's been a minute, but it's been cool to. I've been following everything that you've had going on with your personal life and the media at NMU and also D1 Rejects. So appreciate you having me back on, but it's awesome to see what you're doing too. So.
Glad to have you back, man. I called you Captain America last time, so I had to one up it. I had to go the extra mile. I don't think you guys are anywhere near the Everglades, but you're the type of guy that would do it just for fun.
I would probably do it for fun. We're not. I think the Everglades are honestly about 10 plus hours away, but hey, Florida's Florida, man.
That's crazy.
Never know what you can see.
I love it. What a game for you guys. Let's talk about, Saturday night a little bit, aside from, you and I were chatting beforehand talking about your family being able to be there for these kind of incredible moments for you. On and off the field, that environment had to be pretty special.
Yeah. Anytime you go on the road, especially coming off of a loss like we did against a top 5 team in the country who, we had a lot of respect for. Delta State was a team who, put a lot of really good things on film and had a high-powered offense. But I think, all week, the approach from the coaching staff to the players was great. And in the end, when you look back at it, I think losing or the outcome of that West Alabama game, I think may have been the best thing that could have happened to all of us.
Okay.
And at first that didn't make sense, to maybe a lot of people, but that was kind of how I had envisioned it all week, because I think it put everybody's back against the wall and really made us look individually in the mirror like, okay, what do we all need to do to go win this game at Delta State? And we did it, man. We went in. Everybody was laser focused, which I think, can be a benefit of going on the road. There's really not any distractions, especially in Mississippi. There's really nothing there. So, from the jump, we had a great game plan. Hats off to the coaches. They pushed us really hard during the week. They pushed us very hard to have a physical week of practice, knowing what the game was going to be like. Delta was going to try to run the ball. When we came in, we stopped them. And hats off to our offense for getting the ball in the end zone when we needed to. Some guys coming up with some big plays. We got playmakers on both sides of the ball, man. And that's what a really good team does. You find out who you really are when your back's against the wall.
Yeah, dude. You got a dude at the helm, too, by the way. Coach Nobles, he seems like a dude. I enjoyed seeing the flicks and the video and all the little clips and bites after the post game, and he's obviously gives the very professional. The flow was there and did a little post game interview with him, but you could tell, man, as soon as that mic was out of his face, as soon as the camera was off, he was just ready to celebrate with you guys. I know that one probably meant so much to him to get the proverbial monkey off his back after the loss a week ago, stepping into that position. What is that? Your relationship and the guys' relationship with him been like?
Coach Nobles is great, man. And one thing that always it sticks with me when he says it before every game, he's like, hey, man, I don't have to hype you guys up to play. And I think that's a credit to him and his staff. We're going out playing for ourselves, our teammates, but we're playing for them too. And the way they approach work every week, I see it obviously a little bit more with the defensive staff being on defense, but it starts with Coach Nobles. He's a family man, but he's always there when I pull into the facility. His truck's already there. And to play for a guy like that, it makes you tick a little bit faster. Okay, I back what this guy is doing. He doesn't ever have to really say too much. You respect him just off the way he works and the way he loves football, man. This staff loves football. So the relationship is awesome. But yeah, when, being a younger guy, man, when we get in that locker room after a win, he was so excited. I couldn't be happier for him because it's a lot being a first-year head coach. I can't imagine what it's like, especially coming off of a loss. There's a lot of pressure, but we went out, we did it for him, and we got the job done. So.
You did, man. You did. The number one offense in the Gulf South in Delta State versus the number one defense in West Florida. That was kind of the talk heading into this one. And obviously, a lot of people could have marked this one off at the beginning of the year for what would potentially be a Gulf South title game with the kind of implications that you've had. But, when we talk about some of the nitty gritty, some of the details, some of the stats that, I had to look at as far as box score goes, you guys had to have been fresh when you were on the field because the time of possession for you guys was over 40 minutes to just about 19 of theirs, or 41 to 19 if you got added up to 60. But that is incredible. What kind of difference does that make for you guys getting out on the field, having fresh legs? Obviously, that's a credit to you as well to get them to turn around and punt that thing and giving your offense more time to just run that thing down.
Yeah, well, I think it starts on first down. We pride ourselves on stopping the run, and we knew that was what they were going to try to do coming in. First half, I think they ran for a decent amount of yards, but overall at the end of the game, I mean, we held them to a pretty low amount of rushing yards. And when you can stop the run on first and second down and put them in a position to go have to throw the ball on third down, I mean, 3 and outs can happen pretty quick. And we've been very consistent at getting 3 and outs. We have great linebackers. We have great DBs, guys that can cover all over the field. So, I mean, from the front line, defensive line we got all the way to the back half with the corners, I think it really just came full circle. And I mean, if we can get the ball back to our offense, we've got some crazy talent on offense, man.
Dude.
So
Oh, yeah.
we're on defense. I'm like thriving to get the ball back to them because I want to see guys go make plays. So ultimately, that just kind of keeps the motor high.
Hell yeah. You do have some dudes over there that have been playing. Giles on the outside is one that it doesn't matter what kind of game or what's going on. He's going to get his. And, that is something that we've seen throughout at least the course of the season so far. Has been incredible to watch him and that offense continue to click. But you talked about that, the West Alabama game, which we're definitely going to get to, but you hit it right on the head. You talked about how it was maybe the best thing to happen to you guys. I think especially for maybe your offense because, when you look back, that loss against FAMU, okay, well, it doesn't have necessarily a lot of playoff implications because of the nature of the interdivision matchup. A loss is still a loss. So now you're a 2-loss team heading into this, and your offense in those 2 games really sputtered. So I think for them to get this under their feet, I have to imagine their confidence has got to be maybe not soaring, but certainly a lot higher than maybe a week ago.
Absolutely. But I think at the same time, what I really like about the staff and the players on this team is we all took it individually, whether we were offense or on defense.
Absolutely.
We lost to West Alabama, but we gave up 10 points. So I think you can always look back and say, okay, what did we do defensively that we could have done better? And we found some things. I found a lot of things personally that I didn't do to the standard that I know I can do, and everybody else as well. So understanding that there might be times where we need the offense as well. So to just keep playing, just keep chipping away. And at the end of the day, we continue to do our job and we know the offense, even if they struggle a little bit, we'll get it going eventually. And they did. They came up clutch. Pee Wee, the offensive line, running backs, wideouts, they all made plays when we needed to. And ultimately kind of sealed that deal at Delta where they were able to, they weren't able to get the ball back much time.
Yeah.
And we went out and stopped them.
Well, you guys play complimentary football, and we've seen a good bit of it already this year. I think we're going to see more of that to become even more consistent through this kind of back half of the year for you guys. But when you guys play complimentary football, man, there's not a lot of squads that want to line up against that, the way the front on both sides of the ball looks for you guys. But kind of a negative. You guys did a lot of penalties, so I didn't realize that at kind of first glance. 15 for 153, and that's something in a game like that can certainly be a big equalizer. What kind of impact did that have for you guys?
Yeah, obviously that's an area that we need to improve on. I think some of those penalties are credit to guys just, if it's an offsides or, something past the whistle. There are some things that aren't acceptable, but sometimes the roughing the passers or the offsides, when it comes to the D-line, not to say they're okay, but, everybody is just striving to get off the ball, striving to get off blocks and get to the quarterback. So a couple of those I think you take with a little grain of salt. But, Coach Nobles and the entire staff has done a great job at making it known that those things can hurt you when it comes down to any game. I mean, we have to win out. Like if you want to make the playoffs, and 15 penalties or whatever it is isn't acceptable. And when you match up against a really, really good team, and if you lose and go home, that's not something you want to make or break your season. And that's
Yeah.
basically what he's made clear time and time again. So I think that is mainly an individual thing. Like you just have to know, you have to act like you've been there. You have to act like you've made that play before, um, because outside the whistles, nothing matters. There's nothing to prove. It's in between the whistles where you can really prove, and that's where
Absolutely.
you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can shed a guy to the ground, you can hit him, like it doesn't matter. So individually, everybody needs to take that into account and improve moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you're right. Like that's not if you're going to lose a game, and which you don't want to do in the first place, but if you're going to lose it, that's not how you want to lose those kind of games. And when you look at the time possession and some of these other stats that are incredibly lopsided for you guys, almost surprised to see the score that close. But then again, you know what you're getting yourself into with Delta State, and we'll talk about your opponent coming up, the number 2 offense in your conference right now in Valdosta. But first, this defense we talked about. It feels like at the beginning of the year, obviously a lot of new pieces for you guys, but you seem to gel very quickly, and it feels like the defense is still continuing to grow. You guys certainly have not plateaued as far as your level of play. Top of the Gulf South, statistically, I said it, but our guy Johnny Mack, too, leading the conference in sacks, tackles for loss. That front setup, front four, whatever it is for you guys, man, you guys have been dangerous. It's got to be, amongst other things, just fun as hell to be a part of that group.
It is, man. It's fun, and sometimes it's a bit frustrating, especially if I'm inside because John gets off the ball so fast. We'll watch film, and I'm like, man, I didn't think I was that slow. And John's off the ball. He's like a rocket, man. I know you know that.
Yep.
But with any good team, I think it starts up top. And Coach Mello is phenomenal. He is a guy who expects so much of you that like every day you're just like, man, like when is he gonna like break? I mean, he loves the game so much. No matter what you do, if you have 10 sacks, whatever, you do something crazy, he is gonna find something in your game to make you even better. And I think that it kind of feeds down into everybody because you're like every practice, every game, you can go out and do something more. Whether even I guess in my position, if I had a good game last week and was player of the week, whatever, that's great. But ultimately, that's like behind us. And, even today, the next thing we're in the film trying to correct some things. So it's really, really fun to play with guys. And when you're out there trying to correct things, like you're trying to get better, you're going hard. You don't think you've ever arrived because nobody has. I mean, we still have 3 games to play to go win, and then we can take care of things at the playoffs. But a great group, man. I'm so blessed. They're awesome guys. The room's hilarious, and we have a blast, man. Amongst playing between the whistles and playing hard.
Yep.
So
Absolutely, dude. I love it. And kind of the last thing for you, talking about that Valdosta squad, right? Looking for, another team that is looking for that statement win, right? They lost to Delta. They were undefeated before that. And now that's a team coming in and they've got, if they didn't already, they've got a huge target on your back because they're in a very similar situation to you guys. They're looking for that one more statement win to propel them to the upper echelon of that conference and also into the playoff rankings. Talk about your preparation. I know it's only Monday as we're recording this. Talk about the preparation that goes into that one, man, back at your home field.
yeah, it'll be nice to be back at home. With every opponent, you have to have respect, and we have a lot of respect for Valdosta. They're a great team. They've shown it week in and week out. But I think for us, it's just continuing to focus on what we can get better at.
Yep.
And coming out, we had a great practice, or how we do it today. Tuesday and Wednesday, we practiced really hard. So it's just important to take the process day by day. And, ultimately you put yourself in position to win the game during the week. And we saw that last week. I mean, our practices were phenomenal. So there was no question for us going into Saturday what we were capable of doing. And we all knew we were going to do what we did. So obviously studying the opponent, seeing some things that they do, some tendencies, the way they roll on offense. But ultimately, it's just continuing to hone in on our craft, keeping everybody healthy, practicing really hard, whether it be a scout team or against each other, and getting after it and just playing hard and giving effort on Saturday because that's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah, man. Love being able to follow your success. Obviously, the team We had a couple. You had Pee Wee on. We've had some of these guys on, but you specifically being able to come back and just pick up right where you left off. That's an extremely high level of play to fit in with those guys down there, and being on track. Right, we don't get ahead of ourselves. But being on track to do something special with that group, with Coach Nobles, with those guys defensively, Coach Mello helping you mold you guys on the defensive line. Man, it's been fun to watch from afar, but I know it's probably even better in person, brother.
Man, it's been great. The only bad part is that it's going by really fast.
I believe it.
But just soaking it all in from the day I got here, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like, it's been moved here in May, but since we started practice almost 3 months ago now, about 2.5 months ago, the time's flying by. But, when you're with the right people and you're working with people who are, all on the same path to a common goal, the time does fly by. So we just have to keep chipping away, not taking any days for granted at this point, because every day matters for what it is we want to do. And we got the squad to go do it. And I'm excited to see what happens.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. I appreciate you, Jake. Thank you for coming back on, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. I hope all the best for you. I see everything is continuing to go well. Keep blowing up, keep posting that content.
Oh, yeah. You know it, man. I love it. I appreciate you, man. Have a good rest of your night.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you.
See ya. Appreciate Jake coming on. Always a blast to have that dude on. I really love, his mindset and approach to football is one thing, but also just life outside of it. And being able to chat with him before and after we come on and talk some football are the moments I really appreciate about that dude. Glad to have him back on. Glad to see his success. Also, that team success. We talked about it a lot. West Florida, dangerous fucking football team. This dude right here, just as dangerous. If I can hit the right keyframe. There we go. All right. Tyson Bagent from the Chicago Bears, man. Awesome quote right here. Don't ever let anyone's opinion stop you from chasing what you want. That is his quote after getting his first win and his first start in the NFL, the former undrafted free agent. And as you can see, it says right here, went from playing Division II football last year to winning his first career NFL start. I mean, just what a moment for the kid, right? We're going to talk all about it. And, looking at his stat line from the day, he was 21 for 29 with 162 yards and a touchdown. The biggest thing there, no turnovers, right? Taking care of the football. And, when you look at, he's a backup quarterback. They still have Justin Fields. Justin Fields is still a better quarterback than Tyson Bagent. I'm not going to come out here and say anything outlandish. But the thing is, he comes in, he's extremely efficient. He takes care of the football. He's not going to go out there and, lead a game winning. He's not going to go out there and win the game for you. But he's not going to do? I'll be damned, is go out there and lose it for you. He played incredibly well, given the circumstances, given his level of experience, and he was an absolute facilitator of the pigskin out there, did a great job. It does help when Deontay Foreman goes 16 for 89 and 2 tuds, and then also has some big catches out of the backfield for another touchdown. His running back room, I guess, in general, kind of had a day. They played very well. The defense obviously stepping up, holding the Raiders to 12 points. They finished 30-12 in that one. And, just a really special moment for him. He had 53 family and friends in attendance. I don't know if the Bears are paying for all 53 of those tickets. I have to imagine not. Pretty cool, though. That's to have that kind of support system there. Not only that, but then for you to do well in that environment in front of your friends and family has to be a really special feeling for Tyson. And you fast backwards, you rewind, actually, sorry. A year ago, on the day of the game, the 22nd, right? We're recording this on Monday night. So a year ago, Sunday, he's beating Westchester in a PSAC each matchup. Fast forward, he gets his first start, his first W in the NFL. A year difference. That's all it is for him. And now you hope that he can hold on to that job. And, the biggest piece that has me excited about this next week here, if you take a look at this tweet from the man himself, hold on. Did I click off of it? Oh, no, I just pulled up the same tweet twice. Not that tweet. I'm talking about this one from Ian Rappaport. Says right here, Bears coach Matt Eberflus described quarterback Justin Fields as doubtful for this week, adding, quote, he's just not there yet. Another week of Tyson Bagent, who really impressed against the Raiders. That's big-time news. Not only you pick up your first win in the NFL, now you're getting a chance to play on primetime, and, you just can't squander that one. It's going to be It's going to be a really fun game to watch. You obviously hope he continues that success. He's beat out Peterman. He beat out PJ Walker for that quarterback 2 spot over there in Chicago, who they actually had just paid a $5 million contract to or so. So you know that Eberflus and company really support and are behind this guy at the quarterback spot. I love to see it. There's a great video of him going around. He gets the game ball after the game, was very appreciative of his teammates and the situation that they put him in. But all around, just really exciting for Tyson, and I would love to show all the clips of him dicing it up. Not allowed to do that. So definitely go on Twitter. There's a lot of people who broke it down, like every drop back snap from Tyson Bagent. Be sure to check those out. But shout out to him. I hope we get to talk about a lot more D2 guys making big time impacts. We talked a lot about Craig Reynolds and the Lions, but there certainly are other big time names out there that we've mentioned, so on and so forth. But again, shout out to Tyson. Let's move over, talk some other D2 football. Starting things off, I don't think there's a better spot to start than the biggest upset of the week. That's number 17, Augustana, at number 3, Minnesota State. Mankato, they've been rolling. We talked with Matt Nowicki from D2Football.com last week. We said, hey, the top 2 teams in the NSIC, it's Mankato, Bemidji, and everyone else. Guess who was wrong? For those of you listening, I'm pointing at myself. It happens. All right, Augustana, shout out to the Augies. They come in there 28-10. They pull out the victory. And this one, honestly, a wire-to-wire victory for Augie, man. Augie football. Into the fourth quarter, it's 21-3. And we have just not seen this Mankato team be dominated like this before. We saw Bemidji get up on them, and that wasn't a surprising kind of lead there for the Beavers, but Mankato would bounce back. They would bounce back. When you're a top-quality team like this, you do. They score a touchdown late. They score with about 1 minute, 30 seconds to go to make this game look a little bit prettier. But don't get it mistaken, even with the score, Augustana dominated this game. And a lot of it was in part to the backfield with Epperson, man. He had 18 carries for 136 yards and 1 TD. One of those was an 86-yard run for him on the day. That's huge. Casey Bauman in the quarterback spot for them, 12 for 18. Not throwing the ball a crazy amount. Augustana didn't have actually a whole lot of offensive snaps compared to Mankato, the MSU. So that was something to definitely keep track of. When you look at the time possession, it was about 33.5 minutes or so to 26. So when they were on the field, they certainly did make the most of it, and they were pretty efficient in doing so. But Mankato that's kind of the shock for me. One takeaway from Hayden Eckern, the quarterback, he throws an interception, was a big part of that early on. But other than that, I mean, this Augustana team has surprised a lot of people, and don't look now, but they're 8-0 with the second best defense in the conference behind Mankato being at number 1. And when you're an offense that can go out there and play at that clip, playing opportunistic football, when you have takeaways, when you're given good field position, short side of the field, and you go and take advantage of that, that's big time. Their defense helping out the offense, playing a lot of complementary football. We talk a lot about that today. Bauman for them just eclipsed 2,000 yards on the year, and he's got 4 receivers with more than 20 catches a pop. So this is not a situation where you've got one stud on the outside, you lock him down, and this offense is all of a sudden bottled up. Certainly not the case. We talked about their offensive backfield. The running backs are getting it done over there, and that's stable. And the receivers are making plays across the board. Shout out to them. They're spreading the ball out, and they seem to be very dangerous moving forward. Looking at their schedule, and I'll have to pull it up right here. Their schedule moving forward, I mean, the season obviously not over for them. Still have some big league games coming up, and those are probably 3 of the biggest games on their schedule. They're on the road the next 2 weeks at Wayne State, and then they're at Northern State, who just upset the Wildcats, and they close out the year senior day at home against the Beavers from Bemidji State. So right now, Augustana 8-0. I expect them to win 2 out of the 3 next games. It's just my random pick. I've been wrong before. They might run the freaking table and be the top team in the NSIC. Who the hell knows? Shout out to those guys, though. That is a freaking massive win for the Vikings. And we can move on, though. Let's stay in the NSIC, actually, for a little bit. Wayne State College and Northern State, they get upset. Northern State, 28-26 over Wayne State, a team who has been flirting with the top 25 here quite a bit. And now this is a Wayne State team with 3 losses, and this is not something that I expected. This Northern State team came out and balled, and all respect in the world goes to them. They certainly got it done. Their defense, I think, stepped up big time. They dominated time possession, 34 minutes to 25, 7-13 on third down. A lot of great stats here going forward for this Northern State, this Wolves team. The offense was very well distributed in the ground, on the air. They took advantage of some penalties as well. And when you look at them offensively, they did all of this despite the fact that their quarterback, Hackle, threw 2 interceptions. So you're giving away takeaways, but you're still staying in the game with a top-quality team like Wayne State. The thing is, when you throw 2 interceptions, guess what? Nick Bond over there at Wayne State, he threw 4 of them bitches. 4 times threw it to a dude in the wrong uniform. That's tough to do. That's how you're going to lose a game like that. So it kind of boils down to that. One of those interceptions ended up being a pick 6. That was... let's see. I'm trying to find it on the piece here. Here it is. Yeah, Jake Adams in the 3rd quarter. He gets the pick 6 to put Northern State on the board because they were actually down 19-0 before that. So Wayne State's up 19-0 in the 3rd quarter. You think this game's going kind of how you expect it? A pick 6 right there, turnover. They get points immediately afterwards, and they start rolling. They would score 25 unanswered. So it went from 19-0 to 25-19. Northern State is now in the lead. Craziness. So now, 25-19, Wayne State scores. They go up by 1 point. It's 26-25. 3 seconds left on the clock. Drew Smook, 21-yard field goal. Chip shot, some might say. Still, the pressure, incredible. They go up 28-26 with 3 seconds left to go in the game and secure the W there. Shout out to the Wolves. That is a big-time win for that program. Otherwise, let's talk some MIAA action. We got two games to highlight here. The first one, number 3 Pitt State at Northwest Missouri State. A game at the beginning of the year where I think a lot of people would have looked at this as the glorified MIAA championship. Not exactly how it's turned out. This is a Pittsburgh State team that's right where we expect them to be at 8-0, undefeated, playing some really good ball. This Northwest Missouri State, this Bearcat squad, 3-4 right now in conference play. Not something we would have expected from this team, but still playing, albeit, some very good football. 28-7, the Gorillas pull this one out. Even though, offensively, it seems like they haven't had a lot of wire-to-wire victories. They certainly did it in this one. All right, they got up 28-0 before Northwest Missouri got on the board. Pittsburgh State had a dominant performance in this one. I think this is the growth that we've seen from this Gorilla team. We talked about how they've been in some very close games in the second half, towards the first half of this season. Now we're seeing some of these Gorilla games that go wire to wire. They're getting out early, and when you have a defense like this Pittsburgh State team does down there in Kansas, you are not going to be, under pressure when you have a lead like that. That defense is going to go out there and handle business. So shout out to them. They grabbed 2 interceptions on the day from Mike Hohensee under center for Northwest. Jay Harris still has a day. He's a dude that's going to get his every single week, I'm convinced. He had 19 carries for 123 for the Bearcats. Really split up rushing attack from Pitt State. They did have a pretty good day through the air, had a couple of receivers playing pretty good ball. One of those being Devin Garrison, that stud tight end for them. Defensively, again, they stepped up big time. Forced fumble, you had a couple interceptions, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles if you're Pitt State, man. Big win for them as they continue to try and piece together this undefeated season. The other game, the MIAA, I wanted to highlight, though, number 23, Emporia State at 17, Central Missouri. You think, hey, this could be a really good matchup. Both these offenses, incredibly high-powered. Zach Zabrowski, Braden Gleason. We know this is going to be a high-powered shootout. You would be right, but you would also be wrong. It would be a shootout. It would be a shootout for one team, that being the Mules. They scored 77 fucking points against the Hornets from Emporia. That's one of the most impressive offensive showings. I haven't been covering D2 football for like 15 years, but like in my time remembering this, that's one of the more impressive offensive showings I've ever seen. And we talked about Zach Zabrowski's stat line earlier. 31 for 51, 615, and 8 tuds. Thank you very much. That's not to say they couldn't run the ball either. Marcellus Hawkins on the ground, 14 carries for 183 and 3 more tuds. He had an 84-yard run as well. And, Emporia really did, their defense, don't get me wrong, their defense got exposed, for sure. You score 77. Offensively, they were doing a lot of things right? Braden Gleason had 350 yards, 2 tuds, did have an interception. But, they were doing a lot of things right offensively. They could not run the ball in this contest. They finished with 84 yards total, after you take into account some sack yardage and things, but still they could not really get anything going on the ground. I think that was kind of a big reason that didn't happen for them. Wire Noyle and Jaden Dawson both had interceptions for the Mules for Central Missouri. And this team, I'm telling you right now, if it's a dark horse squad, I'm all in on Central Missouri. Coach Lambo and company down there, they've already picked up some statement victories like this one, like against Missouri Western in week 1. They already beat Nebraska Kearney, Northwest. They lost to Pittsburgh State by 1. This is a team that is incredibly talented moving forward. They do have a couple tests here at home against Missouri Southern and then Fort Hays State, and then back against Lincoln to close out the year. But I think right now the Mules are rolling. Expect them to make a run into the playoffs. Check down in the Lone Star, though. Number 25, UTPB, another team I'm very high on, the Falcons down there and Coach McCullough. At number 18, Angelo State. Angelo in the preseason definitely picked to run this conference. Guess what? The Falcons from Permian Basin, they've got other plans. 28-23, they pick up the W in this one. And again, something where they actually had to come from behind a little bit in this one. 20-14, they trailed at half, come out and outscore them 14-3 in the third quarter, and both teams laid a goose egg in the fourth. But for UTPB, 21 for 27, 203 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's Kenny Hirschner. And what a day for him. Taking care of the rock, absolutely surgical out there. 2 takeaways through the air, interception-wise, for this Permian Basin, this Falcon defense off of the throw from Gerald Gardner, so that's big time. You know, they're going to take advantage of that. Their quarterback was getting busy in the run game, had a couple other guys, big contributors. 2 touchdowns on the day. Deion Cook and Jeremiah Cooley both had a tud through the air. Love to see that. This Permian Basin team, man, another sleeper team on the fringe of that top 25. They're certainly going to make some noise. And now we're in a kind of the driver's seat to really win the Lone Star Conference this year, which is kind of crazy to think about. But that's just where they're at as a squad. As new of a program as this is, the statement victories they've had this year are incredibly impressive. So shout out to those guys. Looking ahead, I guess we can take a quick peek at their schedule before we move on. They sit at 7-1 right now with that 1 loss to a quality Western Colorado team. They don't have a ton of competition these last couple of weeks. They got Western Oregon, Western New Mexico, and they will have a little bit of a challenge in that last week versus Central Washington. We've seen Central Washington pull out some big wins this year. That will be at home, though, which is a big deal for them, because especially having to travel. That travel for Central Washington is going to be hell. I'm sure they are used to it by now, though. So we'll see. Right now, UTPB, driver's seat to own the Lone Star this year. And those are kind of the games that I wanted to highlight. I will go through. And there's some other games I did want to mention before we kind of transition things over here. The first of those being, where was it here? We talked a lot about the West Florida and Delta State contest. That was a gimme for our game of the week. But if you got to go listen to that conversation with Jake Dorn if you want that one. But MIAA-wise, Missouri Western picks out a 3-point win over Nebraska Kearney to keep their playoff hopes alive for the Griffins there. They've been playing some quality ball. Lenoir-Rhyne has a little bit of a test with Newberry, and 24-10 victory for the Bears. They're still red hot, but Newberry, kudos to them, able to keep that pretty high-powered offense in check for Lenoir-Rhyne over there. Otherwise, did see a quality win from Shepherd, who finally managed to put up 59 points on a good Westchester squad. Shepherd must have seen Tyson Bagent's performance, because they came alive offensively. Shout out to those guys. Harding picks up another really quality win over a Southern Arkansas team. Arkansas, I just said the S on Arkansas. Don't come after me. 54-20. The Bison are freaking rolling right now. Tiffin remains undefeated after a win over Kentucky Wesleyan. We've got Moorhead with a W. Valdosta State picks up a big win, ahead of their game against West Florida. Fort Hays pulls out a win. This Western Colorado team is looking dominant. They've got a big matchup against Mines this week that's already sold out. Number 1 versus number 9, I think, in the country. That's going to be an incredible matchup. East Stroudsburg keeps their streak alive over there in the PSAC. Same thing with Kutztown. How about Ferris State and Michigan Tech? That game was a lot more interesting than I think anyone, including myself, actually was giving it credit for. Michigan Tech, not a team that I would have guessed would have kept it this close with the Bulldogs, the reigning national champions. But kudos to them, because they really did. And it was a 1-score game for a good portion of that contest. Now, being up in Houghton, that certainly does help the Huskies. We had a dog battle up there, if you wanna call it that much. But look at the box score in this one, though. And there we have it. So Ferris State gets up early. They're up 14-0 and then they go up 21-7, and you're like, okay, this thing might be kind of put away. Tech would go to score 2 touchdowns unanswered. All of a sudden, it's a 28-21 game towards the end of the third quarter. Ferris does score one in the fourth to put it away. How about Carson Golker with 5 tuds on the day? That's big time. Alex Free's been playing very well for Michigan Tech, though. That offense has come alive, especially through the air for Michigan Tech. He does a great job of taking what he's given and not trying to do too much. Carson Golker, when he is healthy, he is a freaking load. Michigan Tech could not stop him. Ferris State continuing to roll, albeit maybe not in quite a dominant fashion, but that's most of the big-time D2 games. How about Saginaw Valley with a big overtime play there against Wayne State for their homecoming win? That was a statement win for the Cardinals, still trying to vie for some positioning over there in the GLIAC. But otherwise, we've got a lot more great stuff coming at you. Let's go over to the D3 side of things with Jimmy Martin. Now joining us to break down the Division III landscape, repping the best shirt in all the land, Jimmy Martin. What's up, fella? Oh, yeah.
How we doing? How we doing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out again to Kobe for the gear. That's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet.
I have at least the idea. I haven't executed on it yet, but what the plan is, what I would envision at least doing is having like specific gear for like D3, D2, and NAIA stuff. Like moving forward, like that kind of specific, as opposed to just like our branded stuff, something that dudes could wear like to represent their division. I feel like would be pretty sick, but we'll see. We'll see if that ends up happening. Maybe we need like a little winner drop here, maybe a little. Something a little
raffle.
Yeah, a little giveaway. We did a little giveaway on our it was on our Twitter. We did send that shirt out to my guy on there. So we did actually give away a shirt as the title would suggest. Some people they don't think that shit's real. Like I did give away a shirt, bro.
Yeah, just like Mr. Beast or something, like giving away free stuff.
Not quite, bro. not quite. We don't crush any cars on D1 Rejects.
Not yet.
But we did crush some dreams this weekend as far as the D3 landscape is concerned. We'll talk about Gustavus here in a little bit when St. John's, but let's start as we typically do with the WIAC, man. Tell me about the conference play over there in the Cheese Curd State.
Yeah, so obviously probably the biggest matchup of the week was lacrosse in Oshkosh, and it delivered as the biggest matchup in a 31-28 battle. Again, Kaiser, another great performance for the Eagles, 207 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, ran for 145 and a touchdown as well. He's having a hell of a year for the Eagles. And obviously, Kobe had a nice game. Nothing to expect other than that from Berghammer.
Yeah, he's been like not only just a stat filler, but like he has been a dude all year for them. He's broken all kinds of records for the Titans. His receiving core obviously plays a big part in that as well. And a guy who does get it done on the ground too. We've seen Kobe Berghammer is actually a pretty physical runner, but that's not what his game has been primarily this year. I think it's interesting. You look at the kind of the breakdown of the offense in this one. The teams had Oshkosh and Lacrosse had 23 and 24 first downs respectively. So you think, pretty matched up evenly. Whereas Lacrosse, 14 of theirs came on the ground and 16 of Oshkosh's came through the air. So quite a different battle, I think, in terms of overall offense. They matched up pretty well. Lacrosse did have the better half of them by a bit. But it was Oshkosh through the air that was really managing to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, as you see, like 337 yards, 3 touchdowns for Kobe Berghammer. Anytime you throw for 337, you're going to put yourself in a position to be there. I did notice, though, like kind of you mentioned earlier, like Oshkosh did not run the ball well, like at all. Like they had like under 50 yards rushing. So, I mean, it's not a great recipe, if you're trying to like control the game, like run the clock down a little bit, like have long, like scoring drives. But
But when they did get to the red zone, they were incredibly efficient. They're actually 4 for 4 on red zone scores and chances. So they did a great job once they got there to finish at least with points on those drives, and they made it down. Another great stat for you, dude. Lacrosse, 11 of 13 on third down in this one. So able to sustain some of those longer drives. They did a very good job of that. That's impressive, dude.
Yeah, that's why you call third down money down. Like, it's just a huge, huge part of the game. And when you're so effective on third down like that, you're going to have, like you said, like really long, sustainable drives, and that's can really tire out a defense. Like that, a third down is just like, oh yeah, you get a first down, great, but it's like also you're keeping that defense on the field too.
It's huge. Now we talked with Jake Dorn earlier from West Florida, dude. They had 40 minutes of time possession against Delta State. You imagine that defense was probably fresh every time they hit the field. And Oshkosh's defense did not want to deal with lacrosse on the ground. They had 2 guys over 100 yards. Talk about Kaiser. He had 145. Then Gabe Lynch out of their backfield as well had 102. They're averaging 5.4 and 8.5 yards per carry. Those are both really good numbers. Give that offensive line some credit, man. Not only do they make some great room for the run game, Kaiser, I mean, he gets hit a decent amount. That's because he's toting the rock past the line of scrimmage. He's not back there running around for his life. A lot of this stuff for him are designed runs in that scheme that they have going on back there. And he is able to scramble when there is pressure and make some plays with his feet and extend plays. But I think for the most part, man, we're seeing some designed run plays for Kaiser. This is not him going out and just playing backyard football.
No, he's definitely their offense runs through him, and I'm sure like how they're game planning it, like they're trying to get him get him good looks to like either run or throw the ball. Obviously, from what it looks like, I can imagine they do a decent amount of RPOs, in their system. With the quarterback as dynamic as him, he can be the run option in an RPO, which is really nice and convenient for an offensive coordinator, I'm sure.
Hell yeah. Last couple weeks for lacrosse, they're at home against Eau Claire. Then they go on the road for probably their last big test in the regular season at River Falls, which will be a huge one. And then finally they close out the year at Stevens Point. So these last 3 games, I mean, again, for them, everything's ahead of them. They have that 1 loss to Hardin-Simmons, but lacrosse is seemingly still a top-tier team in this conference and in the country still, really.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
Yeah,
they
go ahead.
They'll have a couple tough games. I think they still have to play River Falls, I want to say.
Yeah,
so that should be a really game
just said
coming up
did.
here. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good. But yeah, talking about, I know you wanted to stick in WIAC for another one, yeah?
No, actually, I had St. John's and Gus for the next one.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Obviously, a huge upset for the Gusties. You always love to see like a team obviously not expected to win a game and totally like shock the nation. 38-35 in this one. Aaron Syverson for St. John's had a pretty solid game, threw 3 touchdowns, but came up a little bit short, threw an interception, which was some pretty costly. Obviously, anytime you turn the ball over, you look back and think of plays from a game where you could have turned it around, but that was just one of them right there. Throwing a pick, you lose by 3 points, like just really tough. Devin Vogt had 36 yards on the ground and a touchdown as well. Getting the ball in the end zone is obviously always really, really good. They didn't really run the ball super effectively. Did not reach the century mark running the football. So
yeah,
obviously that's something you want to get to when you want to win a football game.
Look at the wordplay out of this guy today.
Yeah, like that one. Yeah,
that's pretty good, dude. Yeah, and looking at some of this stuff too, at least on the box score side of things. I know a huge momentum play for Gustavus. You talk about going at the end of the first half. They're heading into the second half at halftime. You have that, what really was a Hail Mary, a 43-yard pass into the end zone that they haul in. They were down 21-17. All of a sudden, they're going into the half up 3. And, that was such a huge play for them. I think momentum-wise, what that did for them, because then they come out of halftime, and they're the first ones to score out of halftime. So now you're up 10 points in a game where a swing like that, for me, from going down 4 to up 10, is pretty impressive for those guys. That was, I don't know if you call it play of the game, but after you start down 14-0 to be up at that point in the game is super impressive. And that kind of long ball for me, we highlighted it on our Instagram post and some other stuff. That was massive.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, absolutely. That's play of the game right there. You talking about that. So, I mean,
yeah, you're talking about the quarterback play. 2 interceptions for Sandman there, but still super efficient through the air. Those turnovers were definitely costly and made this game maybe a little more interesting than it should have been at home for the Gusties. But still, a really impressive performance. Defensively, a lot of guys really showed up. You had 2 guys on St. John's, and Caden Saxon and Hayden Sanders, with 10 tackles apiece. These guys were balling defensively. And when you look at the schedule now, I guess I wanted to look at both these teams a little bit. And for the Gusties, right now, I mean, you're at 4-3, and for all intents and purposes, probably out at this point, because those losses are to Augsburg, Stout, and Bethel, and you've got St. Olaf and Carleton on the schedule coming up ahead of the MIAC or MEAC championship week there, which they still could certainly make a push for. And then as far as St. John's is concerned and their squad, they did have the loss earlier in the season to Whitewater, correct? And this would be their second loss on the year.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah, but
5-2 right now.
Yeah, and if St. John's wins out, then they'll probably still get in the playoffs. Doing some playoff math, kind of looking at it. They could still slide in there. I think it was Pool C or Pool B, I believe, in their region. So a 2-loss team usually gets in there. So hopefully,
So how does that MIAC championship week? Obviously, those guys being in the same conference, could they meet again here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, if they both win out, they're the top 2 teams. I believe that's how that works.
Kind of what it seems like. So we might even just get a rematch of what was a pretty incredible atmosphere on Saturday.
Yeah. Now, has Bethel and Gustavus played yet? Because that'll probably be a really good game if they haven't played yet. I was thinking.
No, yeah, they have. Bethel beat Gustavus earlier in the year.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, definitely interesting one. But another one I know we wanted to highlight for sure was that DVU game, that win over Lev Valley. That was a pretty awesome one.
Yeah, 21-17. Honestly, I was looking at the scoreboard. I don't know, you might have mentioned this earlier, but there was not very many close games this week in Division 3.
Yeah, dude.
Just a ton of landslide matchups.
Dude, conference play in Division 3 football some weeks like this is just like, it's painstaking. Like there seem to just be these top dogs, and not all, but a lot of these conferences. And there's just not as much parity as you would like as far as competition goes. There's a couple of people that just roll, especially when you talk about like the top 10, top 15 teams. That's why it's so exciting when we get a team like Gustavus to come in and pull off an upset like that and even just be competitive, because there are just a lot of games that are just not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I was saying. I kind of had a tough time picking this week. Actually, one of our matchups ended up being a 2-score game. It's the next one here, but yeah. And then other than that, though, I mean, Lebanon Valley. I mean, they didn't have the best game offensively. Only had like 120 passing yards throughout the game. 74 receiving yards for Cisco. He had a 61-yard touchdown. So definitely probably their most explosive play of the game, kind of boosting up their stat sheet. But other than that play, like if you look at it, like they did not move the ball at all. It's probably what costed them in this one. I would assume, being their defense played, only giving up 21 points.
Yeah,
and
you talk about strength of conference play too a little bit. When you talk about Del Val, they opened the year with that loss at Cortland, who we know now is a really solid football team. They've won a lot of big-time games. They are undefeated in MAC play and looking for, I believe it is their 6th consecutive MAC championship. Louis Barrios, one of our D1R athletes at the helm for the Aggies down there at DVU. And to me, these last 3 conference games to close out the regular season, at home versus Stevenson, at Misericordia, and then back at home versus Widener, like there's no reason these guys should not sweep out the rest of the year and clean up this conference once again. They're going to be a playoff team once again, and I think if you catch a DVU team hot heading into the playoffs, they're going to cause a lot of problems for people. They've kind of hovered at that like 18 to 25 mark as far as the actual rankings go for a while. I think the only reason for that, one, is the loss to Cortland at the beginning of the year, but then 2 is kind of their strength of conference play. Lebanon Valley has been their biggest win on the year, a very competitive one, their homecoming game as well, so a lot went into that. A very emotional win, so we'll see if they can bounce back and come out and play a quality game against Stevenson, but I think this team's going to be dangerous heading into the playoffs, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, anytime you have sustained success like that year after year after year, like, what you're capable of, and obviously making a playoff run is something that they really want to do. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And they, to kind of bring up some stats, Jack Fallon with 131 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball like crazy, like throughout this game. Just really, they just controlled the whole like line of scrimmage, like throughout the entire game, ran the ball really well. So I mean, look for them to make a run. Like if they can have this run games throughout the rest of the season, I mean, I don't see why they can't make a deep run.
Yeah, and the thing is, their run game was solid, but also their run defense, I think, stepped up big time. They hold Lev Valley to 3 of 12 on 3rd down, man. And that's getting themselves off the field, keeping themselves fresh. They did a great job of that in this one. And if you're able to do that, like we talked about, keep the offense on, be able to make your playmakers be in space and make good plays and just be on the field, because your playmakers can't do shit when they're on the bench. So if your defense can get off the field and keep that offense out there, you're going to be in a good position for a lot of games.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely correct. 100%.
How about that Ithaca squad?
Yeah, Ithaca, I mean, they were led by Jalen Leonard Osborne, 208 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for the man. And you win a game 24-10. and you only throw for 79 yards, you're typically going to have a really good game from your running back, and that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It's because of the Bombers, I want to say. Is that correct?
It is.
The Bombers. Well, the Bombers were not bombing it. They were handing it off to their they're handing it off to their boy. No, sorry, I'm a little corny with it, but yeah, I mean, they ran the ball really well. Colin Schumann also had 60 yards and a touchdown. So he had a heck of a game too. I mean, when you have two guys running for over 60 yards, it's usually a pretty good sign. So
absolutely. And that's something I'm actually a little bit surprised about. Heading into the year, A.J. Wingfield at quarterback there for Ithaca, preseason All-American, and a guy who, deservedly so, has made a ton of plays for them. He has not had the performances this year that I think people have expected. He's averaging 150 yards per game. He has not eclipsed 1,000 yards yet on the season passing, which is something that I was very surprised by. His touchdown to interception ratio is 7-2, so it's not awful, but it's also not very elite. Just not what we've expected from him at the quarterback position. So that's, to me, I mean, it is a sign of a good team. If you're not getting that play that you want, you're able to pivot and get it out of your backfield offensively and make plays happen on the ground. That's a great sign for them, obviously, heading into the postseason. Also, a team that is in a very similar situation as a Del Val team that we just talked about, because when you look at their schedule, Jimmy, they had a week 1 loss to then number 18 Johns Hopkins University, and they're on the road for their first 3 games. They pick up a quality win at Endicott and then at Alfred again. And once they get into Liberty League play, they have won close game after close game, dude. Like the Ithaca, and I think that goes back to the running game, right? Like, you're not getting it done, especially in the passing game. You're not going to blow a lot of these teams out, but they're winning gritty contests. They beat Hobart by 10. They win at RPI by 3 in overtime. They beat a decent Union College team by only 8 points. And then this last one, it's a 2-score game, is actually the most comfortable game they've had since week 3 of the season. That's pretty wild stuff right there.
Yeah, it's interesting because then it makes you think. It's like, okay, yeah, they're really good at winning close games, but it's like, why aren't they winning by more? It kind of makes you wonder. And like, it kind of makes you think about like the Vikings last year, how they were like, what were they, like 12-5?
Yeah, and their win differential was like,
yeah, which is not ideal, but I mean,
almost like a Davenport team last year that felt like they, highly ranked and deservedly so, but they're barely eking out these wins week after week after week. Davenport has taken that next step. I feel like they've started to win these games a little bit more decisively that they would have hung around in last year. That's going to be something for me to Ithaca these last couple weeks. You're at home versus Buffalo State, then you go at St. Lawrence, and then finally, November 11th, the Cortica Jug game versus number 18, SUNY Cortland, man. That's the measuring stick right there.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, and that'll be a Division 1 D1 rechecks game of the week for sure. That's
lock it
in. Definitely have our X marks the spot on our calendar on that one.
Lock it in, dude. Yeah. Otherwise, most of the top teams handled business as far as that is concerned. We talked about the big time upset. There weren't too many surprising games. Randolph-Macon has kind of jumped onto the scene and been playing incredibly well. They pick up another big win over Shenandoah, and otherwise, like you said, it's a lot of blowout style games, man. Alma continues to cruise. They seem to have the MIAA on wraps over there, but we'll see if that continues to go as such. Grove City, another team that continues to cruise in their conference play. They've already gotten past the top dog over there in Carnegie Mellon, and yeah, man, it's not too much to report over here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was kind of baffled on what I was gonna pick this week, but yeah, I mean, just not the best slate of games last week, but I mean, hopefully this week that'll be a little bit different.
Absolutely, no, we definitely have some big ones coming up. We'll preview some of those later in the week, but we'll see what's going on with a lot of those squads. But thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. I think that's all I've got for you today, dude.
All right,
sweet.
Cool.
See you, brother. Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
All right, to finish things off, on the NAIA side of things, I don't know why I just said that so awkwardly, but Matt Schwarzer's in the building. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good. I get it. Look, it's not NCAA. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
It doesn't.
I get it, but you'll get it eventually.
I will. Right. I'm getting more and more used to it for sure, man. But I talked with Jimmy just recently, Martin, about the D3 side of things, and the conference play in Division III sometimes is just painstakingly awful. You've got these teams that seemingly just roll through conference play. The first couple weeks of D3 football were some of the most exciting that we've gotten in a long time, and now we feel like we kind of settled into a rut. On the NAIA side of things, we get a little more excitement going on.
Yeah, it's actually quite the opposite in the NAIA.
Yep.
It kind of starts a bit slow. I know last week we talked a bit about how slow things were going, kind of a boring week. This week was not at all the case.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about a few games here, but I do have to bring up some crazy scores before I get into those details. Bethel of Kansas, a 5-3 team, beating Southwestern, who, if you remember, lost to Friends for the first time
Yes.
this season last week. Yeah, they have lost 2 games in a row. They got beat by 7 points by Bethel, Kansas.
That's big.
That was a big upset. Morningside almost losing to 2-6 Jamestown is another one I need to mention. Morningside needed to rattle a 15 points in the fourth quarter to win that one by 10. Crazy stuff. And then Concordia, Michigan, who I sung their praises last week,
Yep.
losing to 4-3 Siena Heights by 3 points.
Isn't that something?
Isn't it something? Football, just, you think you finally got it. You think you finally got it down. Games are making sense. The standings are shaking out. And then a weekend like this happens. So I really just had to mention those really quick because those were of notes. But the first game, yeah, the first game I really want to get into was our game of the week.
Yeah.
Carroll versus College of Idaho. This was a back and forth battle pretty much the entire time. Both squads putting up good numbers, but at the end of it all, College of Idaho pulls it out 35-21 off the back of John Krebs with 4 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their quarterback, Andy Peters, accounting for 3 in the air and 1 on the ground. At the end of the day, you just need more guys making plays than the other team in a game like this. Carroll played really well. They had some problems flipping the field and converting once they got to midfield, their side of the field. That's kind of the tail of the tape on that one. But obviously in a game of inches, like this top 10 matchup was, it's got to convert there.
No, that's huge. And the big plays, too, I think hurt them a lot. College of Idaho was key in those. And for this one, I thought actually was going to kind of get away from them. When you talk about getting to the second half, you're up 21-7. It feels like the offense is kind of doing what they want for the Yotes over there. 71-yard pass, that one just streaking across the middle. By the way, props to the cameraman on that. He was ready for the quick zoom out there. That was impressive. It's not always easy to do that, so shout out to him. Yeah. He knew that was coming. I don't know if he had a headset on and was dialed. That was awesome. But then again, credit to Carroll to bounce back and come back into that one. They make it a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden, this is a toss-up, and you don't know what could happen. College of Idaho is a quality football team that end up putting that one away. But like you said, a lot of that is ended up, converting and being able to make those plays if you are Carroll. And for the most part, on the day, they actually did a decent job of that. They're 8 of 13 on third down. They did try and go for it on fourth down a few times, never got it. College of Idaho, on the other hand, when it mattered, 4 for 4 on fourth down, dude. That's not a really stat that happens by chance very often. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like just those little stat differences, that's where you pick the game apart, really. So yeah, good game for both squads, but College of Idaho pulling it out, putting themselves in the front of the Frontier Conference.
Yep.
Kind of as the top dog there right now. Next, we'll go to Iowa. Unfortunately, number 1 Northwestern traveling to Dorn to take on their Walmart buddies.
Yes, that's right.
And Northwestern just straight up gets it done. 35-14 win for them. They are still clearly the best team in the country. And they're in the driver's seat to be in the GPAC title game against Morningside right now. They're the only 2 remaining undefeated squads left in that conference. Northwestern's defense is fantastic. Their offense is absolutely unreal. Jalen Graham's stat is like top 15 in pretty much all offensive categories as a quarterback. Not quite the astronomical numbers that we might have been expecting from him as a dual threat, but he is certainly getting the job done for them. And Dort just could not go blow for blow with this team, as I don't know if there are many teams that can.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I think beginning of the year, too, looking at it as someone who, myself, very fresh onto the scene as far as NAIA is concerned, looking at this Northwestern squad, you look at their first couple weeks at a Concordia team out of Nebraska where they win by 1 score. And then they're at Drake, again, a Division I opponent, but you have that non-scholarship league, so you never know how those kind of shake up. They win that one in overtime. So 2 very close games, and you're like, okay, I don't know exactly how this team's going to round out. They go on the road and just thump their next couple opponents when they get into GPAC play, and you're like, okay, this team is settled in, certainly found their rhythm, and it feels like they're getting hot at the right time as they go into the end of the season. They've got 3 really actually of probably their best games of the year coming up. We'll talk about Morningside, I'm sure. That's probably the more marquee of the matchups. But again, I know you'll talk about your D-Dub the next week, dude. That's definitely a sleeper game for them. And even closing out with Jamestown at home, that's not a game they can take lightly if they think they're going to cruise into the playoffs, right? So they have some really quality football ahead of them that needs to be played.
Yeah, I should mention too, if we're talking about Dakota Wesleyan, they kind of dropped the ball this week. Traveling
I figured we were going to
Sioux City,
mention that
Iowa.
one.
Yeah, I have to bring it up if I'm going to be biased. I got to
Yep.
do it both ways. It's only fair. That place is cursed. I don't think Dakota Wesleyan has won in Sioux City, Iowa, or not Sioux City. Well, yeah, it is Sioux City, but Briarcliff specifically in a long time. So just a bad one on their record. But yeah, Northwestern getting it done. And we'll talk about the Morningside game later. That one's going to be crazy.
Absolutely. But how about our guys over there at Friends? They couldn't pull off another, I wouldn't say miracle, but they couldn't pull off another big upset. It felt like last week they had a lot of things going for them, couldn't string together that success this week.
Yeah, and ultimately Evangel pulling out a 20-11 win. Defensive slugfest. Both of these teams run the ball, control the ball very well. At the end of the day, Evangel's defense getting it done. Cavante Baker, obviously not throwing for a lot, but we saw last week, those few passes are usually extremely productive. He had 0 completions in this game, no touchdowns. Obviously had like 150 yards rushing on the ground and a touchdown to his name, but keeping that big play potential off the field and obsolete was big for Evangel in this one. And obviously in a low scoring affair, you can't afford to have those plays. They kept Cavante Baker in check, and I was really impressed with that.
Absolutely. That's a team, too. We talked about Northwestern. They're in the same spot as far as, like, there's still some really big football games to be played. McPherson's one here this next week that, potentially could be interesting. But then you look, again, Southwestern, even though they have lost a couple games here, still a really quality opponent. And then one of those teams that picked up the win in Bethel College that we just talked about to close out the year, another team that certainly cannot coast into the end of this year. And considering – their conference play just started last week, which is kind of ridiculous. I didn't realize that until I took a peek at that. And the KCAC, man, what's up with that? Just
the KCAC is just weird.
Yeah.
It's just how they roll. There's a couple conferences like that in the NAIA where the divisions are so small that a lot of the time they'll do cross division stuff, as kind of their preseason. They'll get half the season done. It's strange. I don't quite get it either, because in the GPAC we played like a full conference slate.
Of course. Starting conference play at week 7 is kind of crazy. Like by week 7, your team is so much different than week 1 or 2. Typically, on the course of a season with, everything that happens is in terms of just like, where your offense and defense are at, what kind of injuries have happened, what is your coaching and scheme kind of evolved into and come to comfortable for. I don't know. That's very interesting.
It's really weird, and it makes like conference outlooks this late in the year very weird as well. Like right now there are 4 teams on each side of the KCAC, so 8 in total that are still in it to play in the conference championship. And I think I should note too, the NAIA in general, over half the teams are still eligible to make their conference championship games. Wow. Granted, there's some weird tiebreaker things like there always are, but this is a very competitive NAIA this year. And the ending is going to be pure chaos, to put it lightly. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to see how that goes. But
maybe a lot more parity than the past. Did you see the line about someone calling the Frontier Conference the SEC of the NAIA? Did you see that circulating around on X?
I don't know if I quite buy that parallel. Yep. There's a bit more cannibalism in the Frontier in that conference than the SEC. I don't know if I could buy that. I feel like the Pac-12 was a better comparison.
Okay. I hear that. Which on the year the Pac-12's having right now, not a shot, by the way.
Not
at
all.
Shot.
Not at all. We also have not seen the Pac-12 play those November games yet.
Very true.
It's still out.
True.
As with the Frontier.
Yes.
So we'll see. 4 teams and that one's still in it too, which is crazy. So going to be interesting to see how the Frontier shakes out. But yeah, absolutely, I think we need to talk about the Sooner too a little bit down in well, I guess Louisiana is where this game was played, but 24th ranked Ottawa, Arizona, taking care of business against a red hot Louisiana Christian team, 27-24. Going into the season, I had a lot of questions about Ottawa. They had to fill a lot of spots. A lot of guys graduated, transferred, whatever. This Ottawa team is extremely impressive. They only have one loss to their name. And their defense absolutely dominated in this game. 4 sacks from their defense and 13 tackles for loss.
Hell yeah.
Hard to freaking move the ball when that defense is living in your backfield if you're Louisiana
Damn.
Christian.
That is ridiculous, dude. That's not I didn't get a chance to look at that one. That is pretty ridiculous. I mean, you look at the standings of the conference right now. Right now, they've got the number 1 scoring offense and defense in the conference. So you obviously slated to go ahead and have a lot of success there. Louisiana Christian is number 2 right behind them on the offensive side of things, and still top 5 defensively. Like you said, a red hot team that's experienced a lot of success. They knew what they were up against, still ran into a bit of a buzzsaw, but made it incredibly competitive. So still a kudos to them, yeah.
Yeah, no, Louisiana Christian has kind of broken out this year too. They brought a lot of guys back in the preseason. It was a team that I was high on. But for them to be as competitive as they've been for this late into the season, I'm extremely impressed with them. This is still a team that can make some noise. You only have 1 loss on your record. Looking forward, there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking back at some of those, conference stats, something that jumps out to me, man, 281 yards on the ground per game right now for Louisiana Christian. Just pound the freaking rock over there. And they still had a solid game by all means. 29 first downs on the night, over 200 yards on the ground. And if you're Ottawa, man, you're able to sustain that and, more importantly, survive that when that kind of game is just coming right down your throat. The time of possession, too, actually incredibly equal. So good on them to equalize that when you have a team that you know what they're going to do coming into the game. They're going to try and keep it between the tackles on you and keep it right in front of you. For them to step up to the challenge like that is really impressive, even when you are favored in that kind of matchup.
Yeah, totally. It was impressive. Like, this game was just a great game overall. And I know we had hyped it up last week, but it really lived up to that. It was absolutely phenomenal. And the Sooners starting to shake out a bit. There's kind of a clear vision now. Texas Wesleyan, the only undefeated team left in conference. Obviously, they have to win out to get to the conference title, but that second spot going to be really interesting to see because Langston, Ottawa, Arizona, and Louisiana Christian all have only 1 conference loss. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
I hear you, man. I like that. Now, touching on some other scores before we hop into talk about that new poll a little bit. Marion pulling off that win against St. Francis. You saw between Dwight and Danny Lewis over there. 5 picks between the 2 of those guys.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
I mean, we knew Marion's defense was good, but just that's domination, man. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
Absolutely. No, that one was pretty wild. We touched on the Briarcliff squad a little bit over there. Midland pulling out another win at home. Otherwise, I don't know anything that kind of jumps off the page to me that we haven't covered. I think Roosevelt, kind of a bounce back game for them at Olivet Nazarene. I feel like is a pretty statement win for the Lakers, who are making their way into the GLIAC here soon. So I know I'm looking at that thinking, if you're going to want to play ball with some of these teams up here in the GLIAC, like, you're going to have to start winning some of these games in pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah, and Roosevelt the past few years has really crept their way into the playoff picture every year. I feel like they just kind of come out of nowhere. Very consistently, like a fringe top 25 team. They've been playing really well recently, so it's good to see them bounce back after a loss the week before. But yeah, also another weird one in the Frontier. I mentioned the Frontier is weird. Rocky Mountain, who was like a 3-4 team against a ranked Montana Tech squad, getting it done 28-21. I can't even sing praises of what's going on here because that conference is just a nightmare all the time. But I will say what is really impressive is Graydon Buell getting it done with 4 touchdowns to his name, over 400 combined yards of offense by himself.
That's huge.
Crazy. So
that is ridiculous, dude. And the last one that I wanted to highlight, we had Lee Kirkland from U Pike as our offensive player of the week. They won a freaking shootout at Bluefield over there in Virginia, 51-42, and just an absolute slugfest, I guess, in every way, any way you twist it there, against a really quality Bluefield team that we have not seen let up that amount of points a lot this year, and it's just really impressive for them to go into their home field and to do that. But otherwise, touch on this before we talk about some matchups for next week. Touch on this rankings and these new rankings at least, and anything that kind of jumps out at you changing wise.
Yeah, they finally put Baker in the freaking poll at 21 there.
Yep.
They've been receiving votes on the edge for weeks now. Their only loss is to the second-ranked team in America. They've pretty much blown everybody else out, minus that loss and a close game they had with Graceland, who was really hot at the time. They've not made it close these past few weeks. They are making absolute statements every time they step on the field. Glad to see them getting some recognition finally. But besides that, a lot of the polling here just kind of caters to some of the matchups we're about to talk about, which this next week is going to be insane for football.
Absolutely, dude. And yeah, I'm looking at kind of how that shakes up a little bit. Dorn only drops a few spots after that loss to like a top team in the country. Friends, we talked about, they get dropped. Louisiana Christian is still on the outside looking in there. Roosevelt, like we just talked about, again, a fringe top 25 team. You did a great job of wording that one, man. But tell me about some of these matchups. We've touched on a couple of them, but we should expect this weekend to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm just going to start with the heavy hitter, number 1 versus number 3. Northwestern taking on Morningside. These teams have played twice a year for the past few years, just because they are the cream of the crop when it comes to NAIA football. And these games are just slugfests. I was there a few years ago when Northwestern and Morningside played in the playoffs to go to the national title game. It's just these teams hate each other. They're both extremely talented. They beat each other up. It is some of the best NAIA football you can ever watch. If there is one game that you need to have on your screen this weekend, it is absolutely this one, but also know that they will be playing multiple times this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point too. Depending on how, those playoff, the way they work the playoffs and that there's been a lot of conversation at the D2 level, right, about how that works and how the potential kind of organization of these super regions and things, because you see the parity at the FCS level where South Dakota State and North Dakota State can meet in the championship because of the way they seed. And it feels like with two teams coming out of a conference like this, that was the question last year is, okay, if Grand Valley doesn't play Ferris in the second round of the playoffs, but instead is on the other side of the bracket, do we have a different championship game? Like there's a lot of reasons for and against some restructuring there, but like you said, for the way it is right now, you can expect these teams to see each other again, dude.
Yeah, and it's always hard with the playoff conversation because right now the top 3 teams in the NAIA are in Iowa.
Yep.
Grandview is obviously not in the GPAC, but they are geographically pretty much in the same spot.
Yep.
Morningside and Northwestern in the
same conference. They don't share a Walmart, do they?
No, they do not.
Good.
Yeah, that's
fighting
probably
words.
good.
Yeah. Can't have that shit.
But yeah, it's always weird. And last year, like there was a Florida team in the playoff, Kaiser, with these 3 teams, and it just messed everything up. So, I mean, I guess if Iowa teams keep winning, it'll be a problem. And that's what it's looking like right now. But I don't have the answers to that. So,
absolutely. How about another red hot team down there in Indiana Wesleyan?
Yeah, this Indiana Wesleyan team has been extremely good this year, and they're taking on St. Francis. And this St. Francis team is not one you can really scoff at. The past few years of the NAIA, they have been very, very good, consistently in playoff contention or in the playoffs. And this is a road game for Indiana Wesleyan, a bit of a trap game. These teams don't like each other. Obviously, both being in Indiana, that'll happen. But I think Indiana Wesleyan's got to be a bit careful in this one. I expect that they will win and pull away late, but St. Francis, man, can never really count them out. I'm
offensively have been kind of exploding onto the scene the last couple of weeks too, and you can look at their quality of competition, but nonetheless, like they're putting the ball over the goal line into the end zone, and they're doing it at a very high clip. So gotta be worried about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to slow down. So excited to see that one
for sure. Then we got Benedictine and Baker, and followed by Lindsey Wilson at Georgetown. Two, again, some top 25 matchups. Talk about those two.
Yeah, so I'll start with Baker and Benedictine, 21 versus 14. Baker team that I'm extremely high on, and Benedictine, who's been having a fantastic season, only dropping a game to Morningside, who's ranked 3rd in the country right now in a close one. And this is pretty much to set apart the first seed in the not the Mid-South, the Heart South. Wow. Pardon me. That's the wrong conference completely. But obviously the winner of this game probably gets a bid to the championship game. And it's a weird spot because obviously like they're in the same division. They're still very good. And obviously there's 7 at-large bids for the playoffs this year. So there's a chance that like both of these teams get in, but also like if you let the wheels fall off a little bit after losing this one, you could could really be in some trouble. So this
and that's the thing too, right? Is that these are both teams with one loss, and they've come to a high quality opponent. And now you're looking at, okay, for both these teams, it's a prove it game because, to prove to the voters, it's like whatever, like that we belong on this national stage. But then one of these two teams will eventually be walking away with 2 losses, and then that's where the conversation starts to get very interesting.
Yeah, having 2 losses going into the playoff conversation is always just such a gray area to be in the NAIA, and it's like this is a big game. This is a huge game for playoff implications. So it'll be curious. And I mean, Lindsey Wilson and Georgetown 7 versus 9, pretty much the same situation. Obviously, with the Mid-South, there's not like divisions there that they have to worry about. But these are the last 2 undefeated conference teams in the Mid-South. Obviously, with Bethel, Tennessee losing to Georgetown earlier this year, kind of that big 3. This is a huge game. And obviously there's a lot of coaching crossover here. One head coach was on the other team and one defensive coordinator was on the other team. And yeah, there's a whole mess of crossover there. I can imagine this one's going to be a bit of an emotional game. Not just for rivalry, but also, players and coaches and top 10 matchup and what's at stake in the Mid-South in this one for that first seed, sole possession of that. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be another crazy week. I'm super excited.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. I'm excited now too. I know this weekend when I get, I'll get my monitors up and try and get watching things. I'm definitely going to tune in, whether it be that Northwestern game for sure, but then tune into a couple more of these. Thank you for the great coverage, man. This has been good stuff.
Yeah, of course. Happy to contribute. And it's going to be insane the next few weeks as we start looking at the playoffs. So buckle up.
Yeah, I got you, dude. All right. I appreciate you, brother. Have a good rest of your night. That's all I got for you, man.
Yeah. All right. You as well, Kobe. I'll see you later.
See ya.